Thank you. This is really, really hard for all of us to sit here and to listen and to really make that determination on why we want to move ahead or buy into the idea of the pipelines or stand up for our territories, for our culture, and it is a really hard decision. I commend everyone for the time that they sat here. I also commend the LNG working group for the time that you guys have sacrificed for new families, because it is a big thing. And John Wayne had mentioned how he stays up at night worried about it. So do I. As a young person in this nation, I do the same thing every night. It's like my head just turning on which direction we need to go to empower our people so that we can actually have equality and fairness and love and all the things that we talk about in our communities, and how we can bring that to one another. Nancy, unfortunately, not here, but she had mentioned that we were never displaced or we were never forced off our territories. And we know that isn't true, because a lot of the legislation that they historically have implemented was about stripping the Indian out of the child, about taking us away from our culture, about our potlatch bans, about cultural bans, about hunting and fishing. It was about starving our people to move into urban territories like where we are right now. So it's the access to us through Indian agents was easier. And it forced us into agreements where we had to just accept what they were providing us, that this is all that we get, this is all that we have. And so for me, thinking about pipeline agreements, it's like history repeating itself. That we're sitting here and we're impoverished, and everyone keeps saying we're oppressed and all these things in our communities. And we don't, and we're told that, our way of life isn't good enough anymore, that we're poor. As a young person growing up in the urban center, I don't see us as poor. I see the language, I see the traditional hunting, the trapping, the teachings, and I know that there's not a lot of the moose and the fish and everything. The numbers are going down. But I don't see us as poor people in this world. I see our communities really, really strong, really full of knowledge, and a lot of value that isn't what Canadian society deems as valuable. They see our land as a commodity, something that can be bought and paid for. We don't see it that way. We see it as a way of life and who we are and who we identify with. And so for me, when I'm told that we're impoverished and we don't have this and we don't have that, I don't believe that. And I, as a young person, know in the work that I do, when I ask the elders what they want to teach the young people, it was all our traditional skills. When I ask the young people what they want to learn, it's all our traditional skills. That it doesn't take a lot to make each other happy. That our traditional governance systems allows us to earn up to $30,000 in one potlatch to raise it when there's death in our community. We can do that for something that is different than death, and to celebrate the life and the love that we have in our communities. We can use our own systems to help generate an economy. It's an alternative. It's something that we've never really done before, but it's something that we can think about. Saigas, was it, that just signed on a wind agreement? I know for PNG, for people in our communities, that it's really expensive, and that those type of things impact the amount of money that you get every week. It makes it harder to live. I get that. There are alternatives that we as a community need to discuss, and what we want to do to help preserve our territories. I think it's important enough that the amount of sacrifice that our LNG working group took from their family to fight to negotiate for larger amounts, I would like to see that fight put into litigation as well. To consider the amount of fight that we need to protect our territories for our children. As a generation, there's generations out there that are losing out on our culture. I just have 3 questions. For the LNG working group, what is going to be your role with the LNG working group into the next election, as we move into the next election? Will you guys still resume these positions to continue to negotiate the deals? And at what point for yourselves was it that you made the decision that this was going to be a benefit, the benefits outweighed the risks, and that it was somewhere at the direction that because I hear it in your speeches earlier that that's the direction that you want to go, is to be able to have the dollars to put it back in the communities. For Patty, she did a presentation this morning, is what are we going to do as a nation to continue to support some of her research as well, so that our fisheries programs are going to be able to have the dollars to do the research that they need to. And for the lawyer, Dominique, if we sign this agreement, are we giving away our rights and title interests and have no recourse to sue for infringement to rights and title if something goes wrong? Because it's something that I asked the chief last night before I left was for the easement agreements. I asked who those would be with, and he had said the province. I asked the president who they would be with, and he said, well, with LBN. And so I'm getting mixed messages from both of them.
Is there any more questions?
So I want a clarification on that.
Okay.
And also, it concerns me deeply about that easement, because that's about the agreement being with whoever the title holder is.
Yeah.
And again, that goes back to our treaty, goes back to the, all of that work as well for our communities. If we ever want to go back to the table for rights and title and to fight it, how can this pipeline agreement impact that and leave us with less than in the future?
Thank you.